Welcome to r/Maliciouscompliance, where an entitled Karen gets more than she bargained for. Our next Reddit post is from Vivid Fiddlesticks. As a teen, I used to work for an import store named after a peer. We sold a lot of wicker furniture. Wicker furniture is not durable. It's the nature of the material. We had white furniture that we sold, and it was so prone to scuffs and damage that it came with a little spray can of touch-up paint. The staff always made sure to point out how easily damaged it is. Most people buying wicker furniture understood that, or would change their minds when they realized the upkeep needed. So this guy comes in and he wants a wicker chair. Great, they sold for $90. Well, he starts nitpicking every little scuff and mark on the chair, and he doesn't care that that's just how it is. He wants a discount. So I go ask my manager and she says, "Fine, give him $10 off." I go back and say, "Okay, I can give you $10 off." He says, "$10? That's not good enough. I want 10% off." So I say, "Okay, you got it." Quickly rang him up, take the 10% discount, which is $9, and hand him his receipt with a big smile and a thanks so much for coming in today. He walks out, dragging his chair, lol, and is halfway to the door when he reads his receipt and realizes he's played himself. He turns back, and I just gave him a big Cheshire smile. He left without a word. Oh, and I forgot to give him his touch-up paint too. Dang. Our next Reddit post is from Catherine Zeta Jones. Fresh out of college, I lived with 2 roommates in a townhouse. For the most part, I was a designated roommate to call or email our landlord every time there was an issue, and there were a lot of issues. One day, something broke in the whiny roommate's bathroom that was totally irrelevant to me and the other roommate. I offered to call the landlord about it, but the whiny roommate insists that she wants to deal with it because she wants to tell off our landlord. Day after day, the whiny roommate complains about the issue. Day after day, the whiny roommate tells us she's gonna rip a strip off the landlord about this. Day after day, the whiny roommate does not contact the landlord about it. Day after day, the other roommate and I maliciously comply with her refusal of help. Weeks go by, and whiny roommate is getting madder and madder, but will not contact the landlord about the issue. Something else breaks in the house, and I call the landlord about that specific thing and only that one thing. The landlord comes, fixes the specific thing, and leaves. The whiny roommate freaked out. Full-on screaming tantrum, lost her mind on me, locked herself in her room, and didn't talk to us for days. After that, we never again heard about whiny roommate's issue, which she never did contact the landlord about. Our next Reddit post is from Shimakaze. This one comes from my old man. He used to work at Ford Motor Company for many years and has many stories to tell of how insane it was to work there. However, this one is short and sweet, and I found it hilarious. Anyways, as you might imagine, there were many hundreds of workers on site, and most drove to work in a variety of cars. Management and HR decided that it would be best for the company if as many people as possible drove a Ford. So they printed off a boatload of flyers that said, "Why isn't this a Ford?" and put them on the windshields of all the employees' cars that weren't Fords. Cue hundreds of flyers coming back to HR and management with the statement, "Because you don't effing pay us enough," and various other offensive words written on them. Management decided that they didn't care what car their employees drove after that. Our next Reddit post is from Sita Sita. In college, my friend and I moved into a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom off campus. We were randomly placed with 2 girls who were friends. Their apartment was already decorated to the nines, and I have a sneaking suspicion they were in need of roommates because they were complete psychotic type A freaks who really needed to be in an apartment by themselves. Initially they were kind, though the vibe was always a little weird. Again, their apartment was meticulously designed for a college apartment. In the beginning, they were open to letting us use things like kitchen supplies, but the catch was that they were petty about how and when we used them, cleaned them, etc. They would get pissy if things weren't placed exactly where we'd found them. They had rules for everything, and the very tenuous and cordial friendship we had with them quickly broke down. Pretty soon, my friend and I were getting condescending essays posted to the fridge about how we hadn't dried off the recycling enough before putting it in the bin, for example. Once my friend and I had had enough and began pushing back against their rules by simply voicing that they were sharing an apartment and not having 2 house guests in their apartment, everything went nuts. They stopped talking to us and would hide in their rooms when we were there. One of them had a cat and he disappeared. She would hide him in her tiny room whenever we were around. They posted a letter saying that we could no longer use anything in their home. The trash bin, utensils, bowls, placemats, and we weren't even allowed to touch our cat. While we were in talks with the property manager about getting the hell out of there, my friend and I went to Walmart and bought the most hideous, infantile, cheap stuff that would clash with their decor as much as possible. Elmo and Doc McStuffin's placemats, those alphabet magnets, which we placed haphazardly all over the fridge, a second giant trash can and recycle bin, and our own Walmart-level home decor, picture frames, and knickknacks. Every room we were in, we would move stuff just slightly off-center. Picture frames, placemats, a picture on the fridge, etc. We also spent as much time as possible in the common areas laughing and having a grand old time. The property managers ended up allowing us to move out into another apartment for free because the two girls refused to meet with us and the property managers to discuss what was going on. I still hate those petty B words, but I loved my Elmo placemat. And down in the comments, we have a similar story from Deerheart. My boyfriend was rooming with my longtime roommate's girlfriend. It turns out my buddy's girlfriend is a good person, but a terrible roommate. She needed the house meticulously clean, but would yell or leave notes if the kitchen or living room were messy while people were still using them. For example, if you're in the process of cooking supper or having an empty cup of tea in front of you that you were planning to refill. She snapped and made a chore chart, citing that she did all the chores. Now, my partner was classically trained as a cook and grew up with a militantly Catholic mother who liked her house spotless. So, my partner has cleaning habits ingrained in his soul. They had been initialing different chores for a few weeks before I went up to visit for a couple of weeks. Malicious compliance time. I'm a data scientist, and who doesn't love visualization of data? Such as a visualization of weekly data concerning the percentages of chores completed by each roommate. At the end of each week that I was staying with them, I made a pie chart showing the distribution of chores across my partner, the angry gal, and their other roommate. My partner was doing more than 60% of the chores each week. My cutesy, colorful little pie charts made her furious, but she stopped complaining that she did all the chores. Our next Reddit post is from MXP. Backtrack to 1987. Times were good, jobs were plentiful, and little 14-year-old me walked into a job as a bakery assistant. Even the 4:30 a.m. starts didn't put me off. I rolled in every Saturday morning and worked like a trooper. About 2 months in, someone complained about their donut not having enough jam in it. I wasn't responsible for this, but the lady was having none of it and demanded a new one, full this time, not like the last one. Well, okay then. In the back of the bakery was a donut filling machine. It was like a jam vat with a spike and a pump handle. I took an already filled donut and put 3 more pumps in. It was quite round. Another pump, and it was looking pretty much fit to burst. I go back to the counter. The lady was looking impatient, so I hurriedly placed the weaponized donut in a box, gave it to her, apologized, and off she went. The car park was visible from the shop. She made it back there before opening the white box and taking out the sugary goodness she'd asked for. I saw her bite it and recoil in absolute horror as the donut exploded all over her blouse. I laughed my head off. The shop owner found it less funny, but realized the irony of it. For a moment, I thought she was going to come in and complain, but she obviously realized she'd gotten exactly what she asked for. She never complained again, but I was also never ever trusted with the donut filling machine again either. Down in the comments, we have this story from Jay. About a decade later than yours, I was working at a McDonald's when we had a guy complain that he had asked for extra pickles, but didn't get enough extra. So we remade his Big Mac and I threw a ridiculous handful of pickles. It was almost a 1-to-1 ratio of pickles to the rest of the burger. And so the bulging burger that was more pickle than burger was sent out. Next thing we know, he's yelling at us from the front counter. Thinking we're going to get complaints thrown at us again, we cautiously peek through the service window. And he's giving us a double thumbs up, grinning like an absolute idiot. In the following days, he called the manager to say how great the service was, and also wrote in to make sure the store owner saw it too, and also to the McDonald's head office. The next few years, every Saturday, around the same time, it was the same order. He was there like clockwork, always giving the back crew the thumbs up after he got his order. He became one of those super loyal customers that everyone at the store knew. Our next Reddit post is from Longshot. Okay, so I work on elevators, and at the time of this story, I was an apprentice working on service jobs with a mechanic. We'll call him Rick. Now, Rick was a really nice guy. We got along really well, but he had a bit of a short fuse. Thrown tools were fairly normal if he got frustrated. Anyways, we're working on an elevator with the machinery in the basement, and some of it was only accessible from the elevator pit. We took all the stops we normally would, put signs on the walls over the buttons saying the elevator was out of service, barricaded our work area at the bottom floor, shut the elevators down, and went to work. Now, this elevator had buttons and doors on the same circuit as the cab lights, which is very unusual for elevators. And we hadn't turned the light switch off because, well, we wanted the lights. The entitled mom now comes into play. I was working in the elevator pit, and I hear the elevator doors open, and then hear the mom step in, and the loud noise of the buttons in the cab being hammered. This quickly turned into her banging and then kicking the doors and screaming for help. This progression took less time than it would have taken for me to get a word in edgewise. I, being the nice guy that I am, yelled up to her to press the door open button. But as the signs that she'd had to move to press the button said, the elevator was out of order. A few confused sounding seconds later, the door opens and the mom exits. I'm thinking, okay, no big deal, situation over. Nope. The mom storms down the stairs, pretty fast I'll admit, and starts pounding on the bottom door where we barricaded off our area. So she's already inside a barrier that's very much there for her safety. And she's screaming at me that I trapped her in the elevator, and I need to turn it on now because her baby was on the 4th floor in our stroller and needed to come downstairs to go to an appointment. Now, Rick and I are, as I've said, pretty nice guys, and if she'd come and asked politely when the elevator would be fixed, he'd probably have sent me to go help her. But I'd happily go and give a hand. Today would be different. I stayed where I was because, frankly, she can't get to me, so she can have her tantrum. Then Rick arrived. She saw him in his elevator company shirt and went off that I had trapped her, and the elevator fell, and her baby was in the hallway and needed to come down right now. So we better get the elevator turned on right now. Now, Rick is also very smart and has been doing service for many years. He calmly tells her that we can't just turn it on. We have to complete the repairs for safety reasons. The mom goes off again, losing her mind at Rick before using the classic entitled mom phrase, "I want to speak to your supervisor." Rick is prepared for this. You see, Rick is technically his own supervisor, and his business cards say service supervisor on them. So he hands her his own card and walks outside of the van. Of course she calls him, tells him a story that almost resembles what actually happened, which is the last straw for Rick. Don't effing lie to Rick. So he maintains his composure and tells her that our behavior was unacceptable and that he would be suspending us for a week without pay. After a few minutes he came in and knocked on the door where I was waiting, so I opened it up. He leaned down and whispered, "Pack up and act angry." So I played along, packed up the tools and carried them to the van, straight past the mom still fuming in the hall. On the way out, she asked Rick what was going on and when the elevator would be back on. Rick looked at her, deadpan, and said, "Well, I just got suspended for a week, and I'm the only one who can do this job, so in about a week." A week later, we returned and flipped the switch. I had finished the repairs while I waited for her tantrum to subside. Wait, so let me get this straight. This lady walked down 4 flights of stairs to yell at 2 repair workers, while she left her infant unattended in a hallway in a stroller. Imagine being such an entitled parent that yelling at service workers is more important than the health and safety of your own child. Our next Reddit post is from Distant Button. Around 2 years ago when I worked at a restaurant as a waiter, an obnoxious man came in with his partner and immediately called me over. He began asking for the most expensive item on the menu, probably to impress his partner. I began warning him that it was very expensive and he should look before ordering it. After going back and forth a couple of times, he said, "Do I have to call your manager or can I order it?" I obliged, and he ate his meal and he said that he thoroughly enjoyed it. Then he asked for the bill. I don't remember the exact amount, but it amounted to around 2,300 pounds. He freaked out. He started shouting like mad, saying why I hadn't warned him, etc., etc. And I was standing there laughing at him. His partner left the restaurant, and he was left there to pay the bill. My manager was watching this exchange and was grinning when I came over, and he told me to go to the next table. And OP clarifies in an edit that this obnoxious guy spent just shy of 2,000 pounds on a gold steak. It has this kind of like gold covering, I guess you would call it. I would say that the steak cost about 1,900 pounds, and then he spent another 400 pounds on soup. I can't remember the exact soup, but the price was ridiculous seeing as it was only 2 bowls. They shared the steak and said it was amazing, and no, he didn't leave a tip. But my manager gave me $20 for a good job. For a customer like that, the tip isn't the amount of money that he leaves you at the end of the night. The tip is the look on his face when you hand him a $2,300 bill. Some things are worth more than money. That was r/maliciouscompliance, and if you like this content, then check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, be sure to hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.